What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. We have some fun stuff to go over today. Heard more about Dragon Quest XI. I was getting a little crazy about it, so I'm glad we heard something about it. Saw some interesting Media Create sales that had Kirby placing a lot better than I thought it would in its second week. And then we hear from Microsoft about Sea of Thieves. Turns out, despite a lot of lukewarm reviews and in some cases just bad reviews, still might end up being one of Microsoft's best new IPs this generation. So guys, for today, let's get started. So Dragon Quest XI, again, is one that I've been looking forward to. I've been waiting for it to come out west for a while since it released in Japan last year. So yes, very excited for this game to show up, and we finally do have a release date for a couple of the versions. The other versions is a little more up in the air right now. But let's talk about what we know we're getting, and that is the PS4 and the PC version. They put out a full press release. They sent that one out, and then they also put out a full trailer. And it says it's coming out September 4th this year. Pre-orders are now open. And a lot of people, when I saw this, I knew it was going to happen. And I went over to Twitter after I saw the press release show up. And yep, one of the first things asked is, did you forget about the Switch? What about the Nintendo Switch version? Now, everyone was asking this because they didn't really outline it very well. IGN managed to catch up with them, and they said the Switch version is coming much later. Now, if I had to take a guess, I would say it's probably coming sometime summer, maybe even fall of 2019. It's going to be a while for us to see this game, which is kind of interesting. There's a few things we can take from this, because after getting another piece of news, in this case about the 3DS, it left a lot of people kind of scratching their head. So the 3DS version for Dragon Quest XI, not coming west. No plans to localize that thing at all. And they had to clarify this further to press when people were asking all these questions, saying that it's just they had to pick as to what they could bring over first, and they went with the version of the game that was already done. They were localizing it, and of course it works on both the PS4 and the PC. That's probably going to be the same version essentially, with differences for the PC for resolution, different graphics options, stuff like that. And it's a smart move for probably the position that Square is in right now. I have a very strong feeling right now anyway, Square is kind of spread a little thin. They just opened their new studio that has Mr. Tabata heading the whole thing. It's probably going to start working on a new project. Probably not more Final Fantasy 15 DLC, although they're still working on that, right? They're also working on Octopath Traveler. They're also working on Kingdom Hearts 3. They're also working on Final Fantasy 7 Remake, and I believe they also have a few little indie games they're also doing. So they are pretty busy, and it sounds like the division had to pick out. The division that's working on Dragon Quest XI had to pick one game to bring over, like one version. They happen to pick the one that works on both the PC and the PS4. The Switch version, we're still waiting for. We haven't heard much about it at all, and it's coming next year. So they had to pick. They picked the PS4. They picked the PC. The 3DS is a little bit of a head scratcher, but I guess they just don't have the manpower or the budget currently to attack that one as well. But it's sold well in Japan, and I think it would do well enough in the US and other places in the world that they localize it to. It's a different version of the game. It would probably take quite a bit of time, and they went with the PS4 and the PC version. That's kind of how I have to look at it. Now we have to wait for an announcement for the Switch version. It'll probably come, honestly, after the other versions come out. We'll probably hear about it maybe in December, maybe next January. It's going to be a while, so if you really want to play Dragon Quest XI in English, or just outside of Japan, you might have to pick up the PS4 and the PC version. No Switch version right now that we've seen, and the 3DS version has no plans. Next up, let's talk about Roller Coaster Tycoon. You remember how we heard about this? They were looking for investors, or Atari was, they were looking for investors to help bring the game over and make it a reality for the Nintendo Switch. They later told everyone, clarified on their page, that it was still happening even if they didn't get enough funding. Well, they've been working on it because they had actual gameplay footage to show off, and they even played it in a little demo at GDC. Now, this was done from Up Up Down Down as a gaming channel from Austin Creed, and he actually got to sit down with developers and play it for a little while. So it looked good. Now, if you want to check out the full video, I will leave a link to that one in the description. Go check it out and kind of form your own opinion about it. It looks like old school Roller Coaster Tycoon. To be honest, it looks like it's just old school Roller Coaster Tycoon. Listen, Roller Coaster Tycoon has never had the same visual clarity that a lot of games now have. It's just, those type of games don't usually have the best graphics, but it looks completely manageable. And according to them, it's been really worked on for a few months, and they already have it up and running, and it's working and everything. And honestly, when I looked at it, yeah, it looks like what I was playing back in the old days of the Roller Coaster Tycoon on my old Windows 98, I think, tower. So it looks like it's at least progressing well enough, and we'll just have to wait for them to tell us when it's completely ready to go and people can buy it, I guess. And then, of course, those big-time investors get that sweet discount. Next up, let's talk about an update that's coming from Bethesda for Doom. And this is a 4K update. It's available today, March 29th. You can go download or at least update, I guess, your game, and it'll update. If you have an Xbox One X or a PS4 Pro, this will push the dynamic resolution roof up to 4K. Now, it's not necessarily going to be native 4K, as we've seen with this game previously, with the Xbox One and even the PS4. That resolution will change depending on what's happening on screen, but the roof appears to be at least lifted to 4K. They didn't say anything about new assets or anything. It sounds like they're just pushing that resolution up. And honestly, Doom looks great on PC at 4K, even with higher frame rates than 60. You're going to get 60 hertz, so you'll get 60 frames per second. But man, I kind of want to see what the Xbox One X is going to be able to do with this game, with how powerful it is. And I'm looking forward right now to Digital Foundry's analysis, just to see what the people over at id were able to do, because when I look at this game, it really is a technical marvel with what they're able to accomplish with that engine. So yeah, I want to see what happens when it gets pushed by the X. Next up, let's talk about the Media Create sales over in Japan for the previous week. This is for March 19th up to March 25th, and it'll show us the physical games that have been sold in Japan for that week. We're going to take a look at the top 10 games here, which starts with Kirby Star Allies at the top, 84,625. That, of course, is down quite a bit. I mean, remember, last week it sold over 200,000, but it has not dropped down enough to lose that one spot. So that means that Kirby is doing well, and it's already over 300,000 units sold there in Japan. Number 2, Valkyria Chronicles 4, and that is the PS4 version at 62,921. Ni no Kuni debuted in the 3rd spot from level 5 at 56,014. And Detective Pikachu had a much better debut here than it did over in the UK, as we would kind of expect, right? I mean, it's Pikachu, it's Pokemon, it works in Japan, that's pretty much it. 42,000 units there. Splatoon 2, Hyrule Warriors Definitive Edition did launch there, 24,908. The Switch version of Switch Mario Kart 8 Deluxe there at number 7. Monster Hunter World is down to the 8th spot. It is slowly creeping down, and it will probably fall out of the top 10 spot maybe next week, but it's coming up on that 2 million mark, so good job to Monster Hunter and Capcom, of course. And then Prepara All Idol Perfect Stage at number 9, and then Breath of the Wild does round out the top 10. Moving over to the game consoles, Nintendo Switch at the top, 50,412. That's down about 4,000 units from last week. That's probably more to do with stocking issues, things like that, you know, or maybe, I guess people were just out buying PS4 and stuff for Ni no Kuni, although it didn't go up much for the PS4, 23,856. The 3DS, 11,203, that's actually up. The PlayStation Vita, 3,627, about margin of error there. And then the Xbox One, 182 units. So despite in the top 4, 3 of those were debuting games, Kirby still held on to the number 1 spot. It did drop, so by next week, depending on what else is around it, it may fall out of that number 1 spot. But honestly, if there's not much coming up in Japan for next week, it could stay there. I think this is good for Kirby overall, with it getting over 300,000. Had a good debut week in the UK, and then I assume in the MPDs it'll do well also. So yeah, it seems like Kirby's good. Kirby is an IP that's still pretty strong, despite people not being as in love with it as they are things like Pokemon. We see Detective Pikachu there, number 4, much better than they did in the UK, where it was down in the 20s in the UK. So it didn't do too well there. I'm glad Ni no Kuni 2 did well here also. So overall, a pretty business as usual week for the console sales, with the Switch at the top and the PS4 in 2nd place. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think of these charts, and are you happy to see Kirby doing pretty well at number 1 spot still, and we'll see if it drops down from there next week. It could, but honestly, if nothing's pushing it, maybe it'll stay there. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sea of Thieves and how it's been received. Or at least received by the customer base, not necessarily the reviewers, who, again, were pretty lukewarm to just disappointed overall, right? So, Microsoft decided to send out a press release pretty much to everyone in the media yesterday, and it detailed quite a bit about how well Sea of Thieves is actually done for them. In fact, they went on to say that over 2 million people are currently playing it, and they even went as far as to say this is Microsoft's best-selling, that's right, best-selling, not necessarily most concurrent players, best-selling first-party new IP this generation. That does include for the Xbox One, the S, and the X. Sea of Thieves is it for Microsoft. Then I had a question about Game Pass, and they did eventually clarify the sales, or at least the sold-through amount, does not reflect the Game Pass amount added in. That is just for people who have bought it at retail. Now, I know quite a few people have also got it through Game Pass, as I have, many others. I mean, Game Pass is a great deal, and if a game pops up that you're not sure about, it probably makes a lot of sense to get Game Pass since it's $10 a month and it has a ton of games in the backlog to play. But no, it looks like it's just sold well. We saw it debut in the #1 spot in the UK, so we kind of knew, okay, people are buying into this. The marketing seems to be at least decent online and what they've done with this build-up with the betas and everything. So yeah, Sea of Thieves is doing well. And I have to at least give them some credit, Microsoft anyway. They're doing the correct strategy for games as a service. You want to get as many people online as possible with Sea of Thieves, and they are doing just that. Games as a service work perfect with Game Pass, and Microsoft knows that. That's probably why not only is Sea of Thieves games as a service, I don't know if State of Decay 2 will be, but Crackdown I think will also be a games as a service type game where you're more than likely playing more multiplayer than single player. Sea of Thieves is boring as anything by yourself, but if you get 3 other people on the ship with you, it's actually a lot of fun. And if they go forward with this and do it correctly, and by correctly I mean they continue to give people reasons to sign in, new content every few months. We've heard about a new patch coming up soon that will add more content to it, and then depending on how they work with the microtransactions that are coming. Microtransactions are coming, but they're not going to be loot box based. It's just going to be an economy that they have on their end that you can buy in for things like a new pet, right? Maybe new pants, a new shirt, things for your ship. There's a lot of stuff they're going to do. It sounds like you can also earn in-game currency to then buy these with. That is how you do games as a service. Build up a massive player base that they say is over 2 million people right now. Have it very interesting to streamers, as they say over 100,000 streams have taken place since it's released. Yeah, that's how you do it. You get people involved, you get people interested, and then you continue to update and have microtransactions. That is the key to a successful games as a service. Not necessarily charge them $60 for entry and then try to nickel and dime them as we've seen with things like EA. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go do it for Newswave today. If you enjoyed this video, hit the like button, guys, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave a bunch of comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it's Dragon Quest XI, maybe you're disappointed that there's still no Switch news, or maybe you're just excited to be getting it soon, like this year in September, you're already ready to get it on the PS4 or your PC, or maybe you're really frustrated that it's not showing up on the 3DS. A lot of people probably figured it. I mean, in Japan, they packaged the PS4 and the 3DS version together under one SKU for a version. It's very weird that they just opted to have no 3DS version. Also, let me know what you think about Roller Coaster Tycoon, the Doom 4K update. If you're excited, maybe you're a big Doom fan and you're happy that it's getting an X and a PS4 Pro patch. And then also let me know what you think about the Media Create sales charts. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you next time.